So I found out through practitioners about the cleanse, and I myself am a practitioner, so I wanted to see like if this is something that I would possibly recommend. And so I just got really, really curious, and somebody I knew was doing the rainbow cleanse, and I'd never really done a liver gallbladder thing. And but I knew that I needed to do it because I'd never done it. Right? Like if you had like my diet is very clean now, but it wasn't always clean. So I knew that there was stuff there that needed to be shifted. So that was my primary reason that I wanted to do the liver gallbladder portion of the rainbow cleanse. And then in terms of GI, like I do some clinical iridology, and I know that I still have GI stuff to work on. I think that's going to be like, it's going to take a few cleanses. Let's put it that way. So yeah, that's what got me curious about it. And but okay, I don't know if this has happened for anyone that you've talked to, but a few hours before I was supposed to start, I like literally had a panic attack, and I was like, I don't think I can do this. I think I got to bail on this thing. And and it was so crazy because I've done like a 14-day water fast where all I had was water for 14 days straight. So I've done hard things. And something about this was like, I was like straight up having a panic attack about it.
Into the situation.
It's so interesting because it happened to me before I started, a few hours, like morning of like early morning hours of day one. And I had to kind of like do some deep breathing in the middle of the night and talk myself into it, and was like, okay, you've done hard things. And I had to remind myself of all the hard things. And I was like, it's just 7 days. You can do 7 days. So anyway, I did it. And I think the thing that I was the most surprised by was, well, first of all, I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about doing the oil for the liver gallbladder, because I personally don't, in my diet, don't do oil at all. So part of me was like a little bit hesitant there, but that wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. And I wasn't hungry throughout it. And what was interesting is like I still had clients, I still did my normal day-to-day stuff, and I was doing this cleanse. I mean, I tried to do less, actually. I tried to clear my schedule as much as I could so that I could have some legitimate downtime. But yeah, I was very surprised when I did the liver gallbladder, like how much stuff came out.
Into the situation.
It's so interesting because it happened to me before I started, a few hours, like morning of like early morning hours of day one. And I had to kind of like do some deep breathing in the middle of the night and talk myself into it, and was like, okay, you've done hard things. And I had to remind myself of all the hard things. And I was like, it's just 7 days. You can do 7 days. So anyway, I did it. And I think the thing that I was the most surprised by was, well, first of all, I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about doing the oil for the liver gallbladder, because I personally don't, in my diet, don't do oil at all. So part of me was like a little bit hesitant there, but that wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. And I wasn't hungry throughout it. And what was interesting is like I still had clients, I still did my normal day-to-day stuff, and I was doing this cleanse. I mean, I tried to do less, actually. I tried to clear my schedule as much as I could so that I could have some legitimate downtime. But yeah, I was very surprised when I did the liver gallbladder, like how much stuff came out. The plaque that came out, I was like, whoa, because I've done like all kinds of different things. And I thought, I was very, very, very surprised. And then my fiance also did the rainbow cleanse. He did it the week after I did it. And he was also shocked at what came out of him. He actually like one day he actually invited me down and was like, look at that. I was like, I'm shocked. And this is not a side of you that I was prepared to see, but okay.
Yeah. Was there like a
And
specific?
yeah, and he had a lot, like he, as much as I had liver gallbladder stuff, he had even more. It was crazy. Yeah, and what you were saying, like it's crazy that all this stuff is sitting there. And I think like I released about 7 or 8 pounds as well. But I wasn't doing it for the purposes of weight loss. My main focus was I wanted to try the products to see if I could recommend them, and I can with confidence. And I also wanted to see like what the experience was going to be like. Having done like other types of things like juice cleanses, and obviously doing 14 days just water. I mean, a lot easier than 14 days with water. Way easier. I had a lot of crazy dreams. I had like also I also had like I track my sleep with an Aura ring. So so I had some nights where I had like over 3 hours of deep sleep. Like it was crazy. And then I had nights where I was more awake, which is also interesting. Um, but I also felt like overwhelmingly, like once I got through that initial sort of panic thing I had the morning of day one, once I got into it and just really started to get into the routine of it, it was like I had energy, my mood was good. I wasn't like, didn't have any more panic attacks or anything like that. Yeah, and I was surprised at the level of energy that I had throughout it. Like I personally didn't feel hungry. Like I know that there are other options for the rainbow cleanse, but I wasn't like, oh my God, I'm so hungry. Like I didn't have any of that um, at all. So yeah. And I just, like, first of all, I was really glad all that stuff came out of me. And I know that I need to do more because I'm sure that there's more stuff that didn't come out. Because it's like, it's literally like, I know that people always, when they get into cleansing, they kind of want to know, like, they, at least from my experience of talking to people, most people have this idea of like, okay, I'm going to do this thing and then it's going to solve everything. And what I always am trying to explain to people is that there's so many layers and so many levels that are happening in the body. And sometimes things just don't release for whatever reason. And you have to like just allow the body to do what it needs to do right here at this time. And then next time it'll be different, right? So I would say, like, first of all, I did a couple of days of just juicing to prep. And then afterwards, I continued with because actually I continued with juicing after the cleanse because my fiance started his rainbow cleanse. So I kind of wanted to just support him through it. But yeah, it's been interesting, the journey when I was doing the ZenCleanz, but even afterwards, like in terms of what's coming up for me and what I'm looking at releasing and letting go of. Now, this is interesting because I didn't start releasing until day 3 or 4. So even though I did my day 1, I was kind of like, everybody that I knew that had done the ZenCleanz was like, yeah, you start releasing day 2. Nothing happened day 2. Nothing happened day 3. So I was like reaching out to people that I knew that had done it and was like, what's up? What's going on? Like, how, like, I'm in my normal life, I'm very regular. Like, what's the deal? And they were like, don't worry, just like it'll happen. It'll happen. And then it started happening and I was like, okay, all right. This is a really beautiful opportunity to examine your relationship with the foods that you're attached to and why you're attached to those foods, and is that relationship really serving you? And then also looking at like emotionally what you might be holding on to, right? Because our emotions play such a role in the different organs and tissues, and especially like if you're doing an intestinal cleanse, well, that all has to do with release. So what do you need to release, what you haven't been releasing, all of that. Like, it's really, really powerful. And I'm looking forward to the next time. I'm not quite 100% sure when it will be, but I imagine that it'll be probably closer towards the end of the year, or maybe the start of the new year, because it seems like such a beautiful way to start the year, nice and fresh.
That's what I'm realizing.
Yeah, I mean, personally, like I like going through an experience like this, and then I like to have a period of time where I feel like there's an integration that's happening, an understanding that's happening, almost like a deeper dropping in. And then I usually will just feel like when I'm ready to go deep again the next time. And it's interesting because I've gone through several months of like different types of detoxification protocols. So this just happened to be kind of like at the tail end of that process. And now I'm like, okay, I just need to integrate for a while. And I know that I'm going to be going back in because according to my eye, I have more work to do. So, yeah. And it's just like, I think it's important to understand that as human beings, we're always exposed to toxicity. We live in a toxic environment. We live in a very toxic food system, unless you're very fortunate in terms of where you're able to source your foods from, which I am for the most part, but it's not 100%, right? So there's always going to be some level of toxicity, and therefore there's always going to be some need for cleansing. Whether you choose to do it spring and fall, which is where most people tend to do it because it kind of lines up with the seasons, or however you choose your process, but also having like an incredible amount of love and compassion for yourself. Like I say this to my clients all the time, like think about how many decades it has taken you to get to this point. We can't just reverse it in 30 days or 60 days or 90 days. Like, this is going to be a journey. And in between those deep dives, like the cleanses, if you can, the more you can kind of honor your body with nourishing foods that aren't going to tax your GI and tax your system, it means that you're going to be able to maintain your results. And then we dive deep again. And there'll be like some more shedding and things that will be released. And then you can go back in again at a later date, right? But the idea is not to do something like ZenCleanz and then go back to eating fast foods. Like, it makes no sense, right? So that's usually what I am trying to instill in people, because to me, like, if you're doing this type of work, it's such a beautiful process that it makes sense to not go backwards from that into the habits that were not supporting you to begin with, right? And just stepping into habits that are more loving and kind to your vessel. Because my work is also focused on understanding like what is going on with the body. Let's get to the root cause. Let's support the body. And then like, I actually personally don't use probiotics. I'm not a fan. I will only use them in extreme cases. But for the most part, I personally don't use them, and I don't recommend them very often either, because there's not many on the market that I feel are good quality. And I just think your body, like, if you're eating properly, your body has the pre and the probiotics that it needs through the foods that you're eating. And it's like a band-aid when people are taking things. I mean, I feel the same way about multivitamins. Like, that's a huge band-aid. Like, if the foods you're having don't have nourishment in them, then let's address the foods. If your body's not absorbing, let's address the absorption issues so that you're actually getting the nourishment and the sustenance that you need from what you're putting into your body. And then of course, like, healing the relationship with food is so important, right? And many people have like this disordered relationship with food. I mean, nobody is immune from it. Like, so it definitely deserves to be looked at and examined.